Welcome to Bass 365 Live today, guys, presented by Blazer Boats. I'm your guest host today, Chris Williams. We have a very special guest here with us, Mr. Hunter Baugman, a very close friend of mine that has really done an amazing thing in the bass fishing world here in the last week. Welcome to the show, Hunter.
Hey, Chris, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. Glad to have you here. I just want to bring you in today and just really want to tell the world who Hunter Baugman is. I've been blessed to know you for several years and call you a friend, and I just want to show the world who Hunter Baugman really is. Um, one of the things that I would really like to start off with is probably one of the most asked questions I get about Hunter Baugman, and that is, how did Hunter Baugman end up in a wheelchair? Was this an accident or what happened? I know the story, but the world wants to know really who Hunter Baugman is and what drives him. So I'll let you take it from here.
So at 9 months old, I had bacterial meningitis. Before that point, I was completely normal. I lost both legs below the knee, lost all fingers on my left hand, partial fingers on my right hand, 113-degree fever. Shouldn't have made it. Good Lord took care of me. If I did make it, I'd been a vegetable, is what my parents were told. I made it through normal, no lasting effects other than amputations from that, no sicknesses. Kind of got that over with at a year old, and then just learned how to navigate life as an amputee from that point forward.
Yeah. And that kind of brings you to the next thing. I've fished with you a few times, several times over the years, and we always cut up back and forth. You do things different than how I do them. And of course, I have all my fingers, and you don't. And I can remember times in a boat with you, us going back and forth. Well, you're doing that weird, and you would always say, no, you're doing it weird. And the way that you looked at it was, this is the only way I've ever done it. So it's normal to you.
Right.
Where the way I've always done it's normal to me. And one of the most impressive things that I've always, that I've always admired you about is you don't look at your life as having a disability.
Right. That, it's like you said, I learned how to do it one way, you learned how to do it another. And I don't look at it anything different. Like if I had to do it the way y'all do it, it would be almost a disability, just because it would be so different to my life to figure out how to do it another way. We learned how to do things differently. And I still think yours is weird.
Well, I have to think yours are weird too, but hey, it works. Obviously, you're coming off a win of the MLF Toyota Series at Lake Truman. A very, very tough fishery, especially. I mean, man, September when it hit the schedule, I was like, man, why did they put it in September? That's like one of the hardest months to fish any lake in the country, and they put it on one of the hardest lakes in the state of Missouri. That's not a lake that people pick out and go, I want to go fish there. And you just pulled off a win, I believe, by 1.10 pounds, almost 2 pounds, which is pretty huge, as tight as the weights were on this tournament. So, um, tell us about the tournament. What you did, how you found your fish, and what you did to catch them.
So, you say that. I remember you telling me early in the year, you're like, Truman's going to be terrible. Because I said, I think I fished the MPFL. That's home. I said, I think I'm going to sign up for a division of the Toyota Series. You're like, Truman's going to be terrible. And I thought, well, terrible is pretty normal around Arkansas. So, it might not be that bad. That's what I was thinking. So the first day, I went up some creeks, tried the whole shallow, go down the bank deal, caught some fish, had probably 13 pounds, had, a 4-pounder in the mix. But I felt like that just, man, you're doing what everybody's doing. How long can that shallow bite last when you're already 5 days ahead of the last day of the tournament? And during that day, I saw on live scope 2 different brush piles just kind of by accident while I was fishing. I caught a keeper out of both brush piles. And I already in my mind had wanted to go do the brush pile thing. That Truman's a little bit different of an Ozark type lake, but it's still in that Ozark region. And obviously in the fall in the Ozarks, brush piles play a role, And that was on my mind. So after seeing 2 piles on the first day of practice, catching a keeper out of both, small keepers, but keepers, I thought, man, tomorrow, the second day, I'm going to spend completely on piles and just see what happens. So I started graphing piles. I started throwing in piles, and I was shaking bites, like left and right. Like I shook 25 bites the second day of practice. Marked about 60 waypoints. Did set the hook 3 times, and they were all little bitty, like not 10-inch fish. And I'm thinking, I was staying with Josh Shirley. We were rooming together. Yeah, I went back to the room that night and I said, man, I think the piles are the deal. I've got a bunch of stuff marked, pieces of wood, stumps, piles. But man, I set the hook 3 times and they're little. I said, but what's the chance I set the hook 20 times and they're all little in brush piles? I just can't imagine that being the deal, And so the next
haven't been in my boat in a while, then, have
you? So last day of practice, day 3, I started the morning doing anything besides that. And I spent till noon doing anything besides that and never had a keeper. Like I had 2 shorts in 6 hours. And so I pulled up on a pile and I threw a jig in and immediately shook a fish. This is it. And we didn't practice real long until 2 or so. So the last couple hours I just spent marked about 40 more spots, had about 100 waypoints marked. And I was going in between, like I'd find several big piles and I'd turn around and drop the trolling motor with live scope. And I'd go in between these piles. I was marking every stump, every twig that I could mark in between. And my thought was that would give me ability to not have to run all over the lake. I could drop the trolling motor, have 700 or 800 yards worth of brush piles or worth of waypoints, and I'd just take off. And I never, went more than say 50 yards in between. I'd throw a spinnerbait and a buzzbait in between. Never caught a keeper doing that all week, but it was just something to keep my hand in between the wood. And that was kind of my plan, was drop the trolling motor, fish every piece of wood I could fish on a stretch of bank. I had 2 stretches of bank that had the majority of my waypoints. I was planning on spending the majority of my time there. Did find 1 rock pile, spun around on it in practice, caught a 3-pounder and left. That gave me 3 keepers on day 1, 2 keepers on day 2, and a keeper on day 3. On day 1, my co also had a 4 off of it. So there were some fish there. Of those I caught off of it, I weighed about half of them in. Most of them were just keeper-sized fish. I did catch 1 3-pounder off of it during the tournament. But I started on it every day. It gave me some bites, and it felt like 8:30 or 10:30 of a day was the time frame. For whatever reason, maybe that's when I was pulling up on the piles. I don't know, but at 8:30 I'd have a fish or 2 in the live well, and by 10:30 I'd have the majority of what I was going to weigh in for the day. And one, that I picked that up the first day. I realized the majority of my fish were in that time frame, so I wanted to stay on my good stuff in that time frame. And 2, man, that left me like 5 hours, especially on day 2 and 3 when I was comfortable to go fish and not be panicking, worrying about a limit. And I ended up on day 2, I caught a 4.5 at like noon. Day 3, I caught a 4.5 at 1 o'clock. So those, big, both times those were 2-pound upgrades.
That, when that bite ends early like that can make for a long day, especially if you don't get any more bites the rest of the day. But you go along and after a few hours, you get that good kicker bite that makes the day a little bit better. So, so at what point did you know on day 3 that, okay, I think I have enough? I think I've won this thing.
Not till Jelinek weighed in. I knew Rickenmeyer. I mean, I talked to him on stage. I knew he was going to be short for sure. Jelinek and Shuda, the other gentleman, they both had pretty good bags, and I was a little nervous. My scale, I actually sent you a picture of my scale. It's at 1832. That scale generally runs about a half-pound light almost always. And so I called my wife when I got to the ramp that 3rd day, and she said, "Did you catch them?" And I said, "I think I've got close to 19 pounds." I told people 18 and a half, and I felt like at 1832 I was going to be pushing 19. And but I didn't know that. I knew that Jelinek had almost 17, or it looked like. I mean, I looked at his bag of fish; it looked like it. I'm doing the math. I'm like, man, I'm 1.2 pounds behind. If he's got 17 and a quarter, I'm gonna have to have 8, in the 18s to have a shot at this. So I even told my co with a couple hours left, if I could catch one more big one, because I still had 2 under 3 pounds in the boat. If I could catch one more of those 4 pluses, I said I'm gonna be well over 19. I think they won't ever catch me. because they'd have to have a bigger bag than had been caught all week.
Yeah.
And my co was like, I think you've won it. That's what he told me when I said that. But, you never quit, and you're always scared to death. And that lake, I mean, I've seen the results. Like, you can catch 25 there, so.
The right time of the year you can, but you can also catch 2.5 there in the wrong time of the year.
Yes, for sure. I think the biggest turning day for me was day 2 at about lunch when I caught the 4.5 pounder, because up to that point, man, I hadn't had a bad year on the road, but I've not had a good year. I've just had kind of a mediocre year, and I wanted to make the cut. And I was tickled to be in 21st place after day 1, and I knew pretty early on day 2 I had 13 pounds, and that was more than I had on day 1. I knew I'd make the cut by about 9 or 10, about that time frame. I had 15 something on day 2. I was tickled. Man, I might be in the top 10. I'm definitely in the cut. Get the fish tomorrow, having a good tournament. And I caught the 4.5 and cold by 2 pounds. My scale that day said like 1680 or 1690. I knew that was in the 17s. And I fished for a few minutes after that fish, and I was pumped, but didn't really think a lot about it. And I get to doing the math in my head. I turned around and told my co, I was like, man, I think I'm in this. He was like, what? I was like, I'm in it. Like, unless they catch 18 again, I'm in the mix of this thing. Still thinking I'd be 3 or 4 pounds out, but at that point, about midday on day 2, I realized that we were fishing, ultimately try to win it and not for the cut.
Yeah, you'd already made the cuts at that point. Did you back off the fish at that point, or did you keep fishing?
My best stretch, I did not go down. I only went down it once, which it took a while to go down it. I only went down it once on day 2. I actually went down it twice on day 3 and never caught a fish on the second go around. So I don't know that would have mattered. I think it was the time frame.
Well, as Duke Gun will always cause you, you're the human sane. So you'd already sane those out before you come back down it again. So,
man, they had a lot of pressure. There was at least 2 or 3 of us in the top 10 that were on the same stretch there.
Yeah.
I don't know if we were all on the exact same wood, but we were all real close, kind of moving around each other. So those fish, I actually had said if this was a 4-day deal, I don't know if we're going to make it, because I don't know how many days they would have lasted.
And that's pretty typical usually in the Ozark lakes in the fall is, they're small areas to fish. You'll find a lot of those short fish everywhere, but to find the keepers and the better quality fish, they're usually in smaller isolated areas, and a multi-day tournament gets really complicated. I always tell myself, we used to fish Lake of the Ozarks in October with the Toyota Series, and I would practice as many days as I could, daylight to dark, all over the lake to have as many different areas as I could have. And a lot of times you wouldn't fish the same area on day 2 that you fished on day 1. I mean, if you had a good pile that you could jump back in quick, you would. But most of the time, to make it to where you made it at Truman, most of the time you have to run different water in the fall.
Right.
Ozarks.
So, and I was shocked at that those fish lasted, and they got bigger every day. And there was a couple of different little piles I caught multiple fish out of. Majority of them would be a pile I didn't catch a fish on day 1 out of, and I did on day 2, or vice versa.
Yeah.
But I mean, just sometimes when it's your time, they got bigger every day, and it was pretty amazing.
Well, I think we all knew it was your time when Mark McQuall leaked out on Facebook that Hunter had a pretty big bag, and I think that set Arkansas on fire. There's everybody that I know was watching, everybody that it was a pretty amazing thing. We all have the confidence and faith in you because you've taken our money for all these years here in Arkansas. We know what you can do. We just knew it was a matter of time before you got to the big stage and did it. And that was really great to see. And one thing that I don't want to forget to do is I'd like to give a shout out to Mark McQuall. There's one thing that I remember when you were getting ready to go to the NPFL that was going to make the difference on whether or not you were going, and that was whether or not you were going to be able to get on the stage. And that's something that you had always wanted, to be on the stage. I can remember many a years of watching your co-anglers weigh your fish in for you because you had no way to get on the stage. And no one knew who Hunter Baugman was because they couldn't see you. You were down in the crowd. And I remember that being one of the deciding factors of you going to the NPFL is they were going to make sure that you could get on stage. And I commend Mark for making sure that you were on stage for this win. That was one of the things when I was sitting there waiting for the live, going, man, are they going to get him on stage today? And Mark McCall, awesome job, man. I'm glad to see that you did that. That's something that I think we need to make some small adjustments in our industry moving forward, because you're not the only handicap angler in this industry. And it is an industry where, a handicapped person can still participate, where, say, football or basketball, it makes it more challenging. But this is an industry that fits so many different people. And I think it would be a simple adjustment for these tournament organizations to be able to make their stages handicap accessible, where the guys that are paying these $1,700-$1,800 entry fees have the ability to get up there and get in front of the camera, get behind the microphone, look out over the stage and the fans, and see what it's really all about. They know what it's about because they've seen it from out on the outside. But being able to stand on that stage and look out over people, it's a great feeling, especially on a day when you know you got a sack of fish. It's not a great feeling when you walk up there with one little 12-incher and you're going, okay, I'm getting points today. But when you have a sack of fish, it's a great feeling. And I would love to see the industry, just industry wide, no matter what series it is, when you get to that level, I think, the investment we make as anglers into these series, that the least they can do is return something and make it to where it's more accessible for you. And, Clay Dyer, there's several others, there's gentlemen down in Florida. There's several of you guys out there that they need to make this accessible for. So I hope to see that happen in the future.
That would be really cool. And it's me, like it was neat to get to hold the fish and the crowd cheering me on stage. But for me personally, I mean, being in the center of attention, that doesn't matter. That's not my deal.
Yeah.
But for y'all, I mean, you're one of my sponsors. For y'all to be able to have that jersey on stage and all my sponsors, without y'all I couldn't do it. And to give you the support back, to be able to have those pictures, that means a lot for me.
It's been an awesome deal for us just to be a part of. Um, you come into things with such a positive attitude that you're not looking for excuses on why you can't. You're looking for reasons why you can. And I think that's what's always made you successful, is because at the end of the day, you know what you can do and you're going to push it to the end. I mean, I can remember stories. God, I remember a Facebook post a young girl made here a couple years ago about having a flat tire on the side of the road on a rainy night, not knowing how to change it. And a guy stops and asks if they need help. And the girl said yes, and it was you. And she's sitting there waiting, going, man, what's this guy doing? What's taking him so long? She said the next thing, a guy rolls up in his wheelchair with a four-way, jumps out on the ground and changes her tire right there. And she's sitting there looking like, and she was kind of feeling helpless because she didn't know how to change her tire. But then here's a guy in a wheelchair that rolls out on the ground and busts out a four-way and changes her tire. That's the mentality I've always known you to have, is you're going to make it happen one way or another. And that's the greatest mentality for all of us to have. No matter what disability you have or don't have, if you have the right attitude, you can make things happen. And I think, it's one thing I can always say, about you, is you have the right attitude, that you're going to make it happen. You never quit till the end. And that's what made you successful in this one, is because you had the right attitude and you didn't quit.
Man, we all have issues. Some of them are physical, you see, some of them aren't,
Yeah.
but everybody has their things they have to deal with in life. And it's definitely attitude makes all the difference in the world, how you handle that, in my opinion.
Yep. And now we all know your wife. She has a little bit of a special attitude sometimes. But we won't talk about that right now.
Attitude there.
Yourself in trouble. So you were fishing the tournament. You're fishing brush, and you were fishing a jig. I know you. I have one of those special jigs out in my box that I don't show anybody. I hardly ever use it because, it's really hard for me to get another one. I don't want to lose it. But I know there's a special Hunter Baugman color out there. Is that something that you and Danny are going to possibly release in the future, or are we going to keep holding on to it?
It's released. That jig was in some pictures in FLW the other day, or I'm sorry, MLF the other day. That's one thing. When I got with Danny and started working with him, we did release that color. And it played a partial role in this deal the other day. The 3/4 ounce heavier jig I was throwing played a bigger role, but the little finesse jig, it did catch my biggest fish of the week, and I think it would have been the biggest fish of the event. They don't weigh them on day 3. I know big bass for the event was 5, and this one was well over 5.5.
Well, Danny does a great job. He builds a great jig here in Arkansas, Grisalo baits, and you guys need to go out and check out the Hunter Baugman series of jigs. He's got some awesome finesse jigs. We're coming up into the fall. As these fish get shallower, it'll definitely be a player.
The finesse jig's always a player, Chris.
It's always a player. I know. I remember one day I was in the back of the boat and I kept catching them, and you asked me, "What are you doing?" And I kept telling you, "It's the trailer, man. I'm telling you." But you would never change trailers.
I'm hard-headed. That's probably. I mean, this event, it just fits so well. I don't fish brush all the time, but to be able to go drag a jig and fish like I want to fish, I mean, it just fit.
Yeah. Well, somebody asked me the other day. They're like, "Do you think he really caught him on a jig?" I said, "I know he caught him on a jig." I said, "There's only like 3 baits he throws."
Yeah.
Like, serious? I'm like, yeah. I said, if you think about it, he takes our money all the time with 3 baits, and here we are with rooms full of stuff that we all, 27 rods on the front deck, and Hunter's got, a wobble head, a jig, and a square bill on the front deck, and he's taking our money all the time. So maybe that's a good, good example of, keep it simple, stupid, and it works.
Hey, I'm not real smart. It's confusing if we get too many rods out there.
So, well, what's future plans?
Man, short-term future, we've got an MPFL in Florida at the end of the year, and I'm going to go kill a deer after that, possibly before that. Long-term, make this thing a career, man. I hope and pray this is opening some doors that are going to blow wide open and make this thing. I've worked a long time, that. Been national for 2 years now, but hopefully we can maybe add some more tournaments next year. Yeah. Who knows how many we'll fish?
That'd be great to see. So I'm assuming, like most anglers, that's sponsorship dollars is really the biggest key for most anglers to make it out there and to be able to do this and be able to grow their careers and other series and we all have the dream of the Bassmaster Classic, and the Bassmaster Leagues. No matter what series you're in or what angler you are, that's always been a staple in the sport. So, hopefully that this has opened doors so people can see really who you are and be able to get some support behind you and get those sponsors, endemic, non-endemic, whatever fits the best. I know that you can represent them well. You've been with us at Blazer since 2019, and I can remember getting the shocking phone call. It was in 2018, the week of the Forest Wood Cup. I had talked to you a couple months before, and I said, "Look, I know you got a boat brand you're with. Just do me a favor before you buy another boat. Just go on a demo ride with me." And you called me, and you're like, "Hey, man, I'm going to be over in Hot Springs. Let's go on that demo ride." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." So I went and got Evan's boat because it had the DTS to where you would be able to drive it. We'll talk about a few things on your boat here in a minute. But remember we went out and we run the boat and we loaded up. You're like, "Hey, man, it's nice." Went on about our way. I was like, "Yeah." I don't guess he liked it. And in about 2 weeks, he called me and said, "Hey, what do we got to do to order a boat?" And I'm like, "Really?" And your words were, "Yeah, I just went on the demo ride with you because I told you I would." And that's one thing I can say. If Hunter Baugman tells you he's going to do something, he's a man of his word. He's gonna try his best to do it. And then you said, "But I love the boat." So we ordered you a boat. We got it you a new one. Just so you know, it's sprayed this week. So it's in the mold. It'll be coming down the line. Bud's pretty excited about it. It's going to be a color we haven't done in a long time. So we're anxious to see that. But, we made a few modifications, simple things to your boat. People ask. I actually did an interview with a college boy the other day that's really looking at modifications for boats for handicapped and disabled people. He's got a lot of great ideas. But things we did to yours was we, made the cover for the trolling motor to be able to raise the pedal up to where you could reach it easier, the seat base. But for the most part, you drive a boat just like all the rest of us do and operate it. I mean, the trolling motor being there where you can operate it with your hand, and other than that, no hot foot. And people said, "Man, he really drives that boat." I said, "Yeah." It's the first time I got in the boat with him. I was like, "Man, I'm kind of nervous. This boat runs 80, and he ain't using a hot foot. I'm kind of nervous." But after a few times in the boat with you, it's kind of like the old days when we didn't use hot foots, and you do a heck of a job at it, man. Tell us what's your favorite part of your Blazer 625?
Well, hey, before that, there's only, without a hot foot, you only have two options: wide open or neutral. So I mean,
well, I'm the wide open guy, so it's okay.
Man, the ride of the Blazer and the finish is great, and I'll pick on Blazer a little bit. I've told you this story a bunch. I rode in an old, and when I say old, it was a 90-something Blazer, and I thought I was going to die. Now I didn't drive it, but I didn't know if I'd make it to where we were stopping. And you started on me about a test drive, and I was like, I don't want one of those boats. Like, I almost died on one of those boats. I don't want one of those. So when we went on the test drive, I was so shocked at how well that boat drove. And y'all have done a lot to try to level performance with the ride, and everybody likes a fast boat, but you got to have a boat that doesn't beat you to death and feel like it's a kite. And y'all are there. And the ride definitely it's so impressive. Everybody that gets in my boat. Well, I've never been in a Blazer, but they all like it. I have not ever had one person that's got my boat said they didn't like it. I may have scared them, but they didn't say
that. Well, I may have scared one or two in a lifetime myself, but hey, I had fun doing it, but we're glad to have you, and we look forward to building the future with you for sure at Blazer. You're part of the Blazer family, and as long as I have anything to say with it, it's you're going to be here as long as we can keep you.
I mean, this is boat number 4 that's sprayed this week. So
boat number 4, year number 5. We had such a hard time getting motors last year. You actually run this boat for 2 years, which is something you normally don't do, but with the supply chain, it's been challenging. So, back to Hunter a little bit. Man, you're a proud father. Getting ready to be a proud father number 2.
Yeah, stressed out father probably.
Well, a house full of girls. I mean,
oh man, yes, I've got
a couple of those myself. So
we've got a 16-month-old little girl here, Kinley, and we've got 2 months.
Like you?
Yeah, she's my little mini me. She's not really my buddy though. She's Andrea's buddy. She likes her more. She's like mama's girl. But 2 months, I think, from this week is we will have girl number 2 here, unnamed girl number 2.
Are we going to have a dramatic entry into the world like we did the last time, where you had to stop a tournament, fly across the country, and?
I hope not. Last time we were in Florida, and I flew home. She had the baby, and I flew back and finished the tournament. Well, it just so happens that I'll be in Florida 2 weeks before the C-section date. So, yeah, we could be doing the same thing from probably the same airport, Orlando.
You actually took like a Cessna or something back, flew out through the night or something to get back?
Yeah, man, I had a good dude. It was a friend of a friend reach out, and he was like, man, if you can take care of the fuel, I'll get you back. And we flew, and it was small, and neither one of us was small guys, and we were pretty cramped. But it was neat. I've never, flown like that before. We stayed low. I actually had service on my phone the whole time. Could see. We flew down the Destin shoreline at night with everybody out partying. So it was a really cool deal. minus the lack of sleep that I'd had for a couple of days. But sure enough, we flew back and got in. And actually, I'll make it quick. But the airport was locked. We couldn't get out. We landed in Leesburg, Florida, and could not, like, my ride to get me to my truck. When we came over the lake, they were taking off. Like, I was already late for takeoff. And then we landed, and I had a guy to pick me up, and he was on the outside of the gate, and we were on the inside. And we like to have never got out of the airport. It took us like an hour to get out of the airport just so I could leave. Yeah. That barbed wire is kind of scary on top.
Yeah, that barbed wire gets you. Yeah, that was definitely another interesting time in your life there, but it was an amazing time. You and your wife had tried to have children for many years, and God finally had said it was time and blessed you guys with that. That's another thing is you do a lot of motivational speaking. Um, tell everybody a little bit about what you do with your motivational speaking.
So I go. Last night I was actually in Clarksville next to Horizon speaking to a group of school fishing club.
Yeah, I think you were actually talking to this young hammer up there, Jackson Rabanus.
Yeah, apparently he's gonna catch fish like his daddy because he was angler of the year and he had won a kayak tournament last weekend, an adult kayak tournament. Yep. So, and that's the first time he'd ever been in a kayak the day he fished.
And he's the youngest one to ever do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, but no, kids, youth groups, churches, businesses, I hadn't done a lot of that, but different disabled, groups I've gone and spoke to. It's just, man, whatever story I, fits is what I'll share. It's either my faith at a church, type place, or if it's not, we can just talk motivation, man, and try, everybody has a reason they're here. We can talk about that.
100%. Everybody has a reason we're here, and everybody has I believe there's a button on everybody.
Oh yeah.
I was in a management training class one time, and the instructor said that motivation was 100% internal, and I said, I don't agree with it 100%. Yeah, it is something you have to motivate. You have to get motivated from within. But there's things out there in this world that motivate people that push that button and make that switch. So, I've had a lot of things in life that I've been blessed to do, and I've been a very driven, motivated person. But there was things in my life that pushed those buttons that motivated me. So getting out there and sharing those things with the youth and just with everybody is a great thing. I love to see you do it. So, but that's about everything that I have to pick on you. Can't pick on you too much. You're one of my team guys, but I'm proud to see this happen in your life. We all are. Ricky was, man, as soon as it was unfolding, Ricky at Bass 365 texted me, look, I want him on the show. This is amazing. Big group text, a lot of people out there, Zach Burge, Jason Lambert, Cody Meyer, Troy Broussard, just everybody was just, cheering you on the whole way. It is probably, I have to agree, one of the most amazing things that I've seen happen in a long time in bass fishing. And to be as closely connected to it was, you got the trophy and you got the money, but I got the win too. So that was pretty awesome to be a part of. My whole family standing there watching the computer, the kids, wife, everybody, rooting you on because you're part of the family. And man, I just, congratulations. Soak it up as long as you can. But as long as well as I do, it's going to be time to get back to fishing here soon. And put your head down and let's do this again.
I'm ready, man. I appreciate it. Thank you to everybody that's reached out. It's been overwhelming. There's absolutely no way I could reply to everything that's been tagged on Facebook, but it.
I seen one the other day that had like 1,800 likes on it and 300 and something comments, and it's just like, wow.
And some of the heroes that I've looked up to for so long in the fishing world have reached out, and it's awesome. Awesome.
Seeing a lot of that out there too. And I thought, man, that's awesome. They're paying attention to what's going on.
Yes.
And now you just go put a couple more of these dudes together, and maybe maybe you'll make it to that next level and get that support that you need. Because we all know here in Arkansas, it's one other thing is a lot of people don't realize is, and you're a river rat. When you get you on the Arkansas River, I don't know how it is now since you've been fishing nationally and not home as much, but I know used to it was like you would win like 30% of everything you entered on the river. Um, to put that in perspective, most pros out there would be ecstatic if they could win a top 10 30% of the time.
Right.
But here in Arkansas, you win 30% of the time.
Man, that Arkansas River gets a lot of hate. It's a tough place to fish, but it's especially at Little Rock Pool. It's given me a little bit of a name, and it's given me a little bit of play money to be able to get in some bigger tournaments through the years. I've done a lot from the river.
Yeah, our running joke is, when there's not a tournament there, you and Brad usually put one on, and I usually say, well, Hunter needs diaper money, don't fall for it, because you're going to take our money. I think the one time I fished with Jacob Perkins out there, I think we may have edged by you by a little bit, but not by much. But I think that's the only time that I can ever recall, finishing ahead of you. I don't know where we at in LOZ this year. I
was so far at the bottom, I didn't even get points. We've got an MPFL on top of the championship, and I zeroed on day one LOZ, and that was the first day, full day tournament that I've zeroed in a very long time. And then on day two, I had some fish, but with the championship not on the books, I just chunked them and didn't worry about weigh in, went home. So that's the first double zeros I've ever had.
I did that the year before, I believe it was. I caught one line burner and thought, man, okay, no zero. That dude shrunk up a 1/4 inch that day. By the time I got to weigh in, I was just like, yep, get me a zero. Hadn't done that in a while. But yeah, man, you do an amazing job. You're solid at everything you do when it comes to fishing. I know you haven't cashed any checks this year in the NPFL, but in the points, you've been right there every time.
I've never that's always been my goal, or not my goal. It's kind of been my nemesis in life. Like the BFL, I finished 10th or 11th one year, never made a check. It just I've prided myself at being extremely consistent, and for like 99% of the time, completely missing 8 bombs. We just got to bump it up one more level, man. That's I told Josh Shirley the other day. It'll click. If I get the consistency to go up just a hair, I'll just be wide open.
Well, you just kicked the door open with that big trophy there over your head, and just continue on with it, man.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it.
Glad to see it. You've got the support not only of Arkansas now, but I think you got the support of the whole world in the fishing industry behind you now, and you're gonna have a wild ride for the next few months.
I'm ready, man. Let's see where it goes.
Man, congratulations. Thanks for coming on the show today. And we'll get this back over to Ricky. And if you need anything, give me a call.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Ricky.